The rich aunt left a ring for each cousin, but for one she only gave a stone. A heavy silence filled the living room of the mansion as the three cousins simultaneously opened the small red velvet boxes the lawyer had handed them. The entire family was gathered for the reading of Elizabeth Carter's will, the matriarch who had built a jewelry empire in Denver. Abigail felt her heart race when she saw the contents of her box, while her cousins Jennifer and Ashley displayed diamond rings that sparkled under the crystal chandelier's light. She found only a dull grey stone, uncut and seemingly devoid of beauty. "Oh my, look how gorgeous," Jennifer exclaimed, raising her hand so everyone could see the dazzling ring. "Auntie really knew how to pick jewelry," Ashley laughed loudly, tossing her brown hair as she admired her own ring. "Mine's at least 3 carats. Abigail, let me see yours." She leaned over to peek into her cousin's box, and her expression completely changed. "This is a joke, right?" A cruel laugh echoed through the room as Ashley showed everyone the plain stone Abigail held. "Aunt Elizabeth must have really lost it in her last days," Jennifer said, covering her mouth to hide her giggles. "Poor Abigail, taking care of the old lady all this time just to get a river rock." The other relatives began whispering, and some even laughed along. Abigail felt her cheeks burn with shame. For 5 years, she had visited her aunt every day, bringing medicine, keeping her company, while Jennifer and Ashley only showed up for holidays or when they needed to borrow money. The lawyer, Richard Thompson, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. Mrs. Carter left very specific instructions about these mementos. According to her, each cousin would receive exactly what they deserved. "So Abigail deserved an ugly rock then?" Ashley teased, sparking more laughter around the room. Abigail placed the stone back in the box and stood, her eyes welling up. "Excuse me," she murmured, leaving the room under the malicious gazes of her relatives. She went upstairs to the bedroom that had been her refuge during the afternoons she spent caring for her aunt. Elizabeth had always been affectionate with her. Unlike the cold treatment she gave her other nieces, why would she do this? Why humiliate her in front of the whole family? Abigail sat in the armchair by the window, looking out at the garden she had helped her aunt tend. The tears finally came, silent and bitter. She wasn't crying over the inheritance's value, but over the feeling of betrayal. Elizabeth had been like a second mother to her, especially after she lost her parents in an accident when she was just 15. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Mrs. Thompson, the housekeeper who had worked there for over 30 years, entered. "Sweetheart, don't pay those two any mind," the grey-haired woman said, closing the door behind her. "Your aunt had her reasons for everything." "What reasons, Mrs. Thompson?" "To humiliate me in front of everyone." The housekeeper stepped closer, glancing around as if making sure no one was listening. "Mrs. Carter never did anything without careful thought. She talked to me about you, said you were the only one who truly cared for her. Then why give me this worthless stone?" Mrs. Thompson hesitated for a moment. "Maybe because she knew you'd discover its real value. Your aunt kept many secrets in this house, dear. Many secrets." Abigail wiped her tears. "What kind of secrets?" "She had a private office in the attic no one knew about, not even your cousins. She spent hours up there, sorting through old papers, studying strange stones with a magnifying glass. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Abigail's heart began to beat faster. Strange stones, just like the one you received. She had several kept in a special little box. Sometimes she would spend hours looking at them as if searching for something. Abigail opened the box again and picked up the stone. Under the light from the window, she noticed some very fine scratches on the surface, almost imperceptible. "Mrs. Thompson, could you show me that office?" The housekeeper nervously glanced at the door. "Not now, dear. There are too many people in the house, but tonight, when everyone leaves, I'll take you there." Abigail agreed and tucked the stone into her pocket. She went downstairs to say goodbye to her relatives, silently enduring their spiteful comments about her inheritance. Jennifer and Ashley were already making plans to sell the rings and invest the money. "Abigail, you could donate that little stone for some child to play with," Ashley said with false sympathy. At least it'd be good for something. I'll keep it with care, Abigail replied, steadying her voice. When the house was finally empty, Mrs. Thompson led her to a narrow staircase hidden behind a bookshelf in the library. The attic was small, but organized like a proper office. There was an old desk covered in papers, books on mineralogy, a professional magnifying glass, and several wooden boxes. Abigail turned on the lamp and began examining the papers. She found maps of the region, notes on rock formations, and, to her surprise, deeds for properties she hadn't known about. Look at this, Mrs. Thompson. Aunt Elizabeth owned land in the countryside that no one knew of. She bought those properties about 20 years ago, always in secret. She said they'd be worth a fortune someday. Abigail opened one of the boxes and found several stones similar to hers, all grey and dull. There was also a small notebook with Elizabeth's tiny handwriting. She began to read. The girls don't know the treasure they hold in their hands. They think value is only what shines and impresses others. Abigail will understand the true meaning of the inheritance when the time is right. Abigail's heart raced. There were more notes about the stones, geographic coordinates, and even references to a mineralogist named Professor Williams. Mrs. Thompson, do you know a Professor Williams? Of course. Your aunt visited him every month. A very intelligent man who lives in Cherry Creek. She always took these stones for him to examine. Abigail decided she would go find this professor the next morning. She gathered some important papers and left the attic with the feeling she was about to uncover something extraordinary. The following morning, she found Professor Williams's address in her aunt's planner. It was a small apartment near downtown Denver, where he also ran his private lab. The professor was a man in his 70s, with completely white hair and thick glasses. When Abigail introduced herself as Elizabeth's niece, he welcomed her with a sad smile. I was deeply saddened by Elizabeth's passing. She was a woman ahead of her time, very intelligent. Professor, she left me this in her inheritance, Abigail said, showing him the stone. Everyone thought it was worthless, but I found her notes, and they make me think otherwise. The professor took the stone and examined it carefully with a magnifying glass. Elizabeth was right to keep these stones a secret. They're very special, but not in the way most people would imagine. What do you mean? These stones contain traces of an extremely rare mineral used in clean energy batteries. The problem is, alone, they don't reveal their properties. Elizabeth had been searching for the other pieces of the set for years. Abigail felt a chill in her stomach. Other pieces? According to her, there are 2 other stones that, when brought together, form a kind of map. Something left behind by the old prospectors in her family as a clue to locate a very valuable deposit. Auntie never told me about prospectors in the family. The professor smiled. The Carter family has a rich history in Colorado's mining industry. Elizabeth's great-grandfather was one of the first to explore a specific region out in the countryside, but he had to abandon the land for reasons she never fully explained to me. Abigail thought about the property deeds she had found. Professor, Auntie recently bought land in the countryside. Could it be related to this story? Most likely. Elizabeth was a determined woman. If she bought that land, she knew exactly what she was doing. Abigail left the lab with her mind buzzing with possibilities. She decided to go back to her aunt's house to examine the documents more carefully. When she arrived, she found Jennifer and Ashley in the living room, chatting animatedly with a man in a suit. Abigail, Jennifer said with a fake smile. So glad you're here. This is Mr. Bryan, a jewelry buyer. We were just discussing selling our rings. The man approached Abigail. I heard you also inherited a piece of jewelry from the deceased. May I take a look? Abigail hesitated, but took the stone from her pocket. The man examined it quickly and made a dismissive face. This isn't jewelry, just an ordinary rock. It's worthless. Jennifer and Ashley laughed. We told you, Abigail. At least we inherited something of value. After the buyer left, the cousins kept mocking Abigail, but she noticed something odd. They seemed more interested in what she planned to do with the stone than with their own jewelry. You're going to throw that thing away, right, Abigail? Ashley asked casually. I haven't decided yet. Look, if you want, I can take it off your hands. I know a kid who'd love to play with a little rock, Jennifer insisted. Abigail found their persistence suspicious. Thanks, but I'll keep it as a memento of Auntie. She went back up to the secret office and began reading Elizabeth's notes more carefully. On one page, she found a detail that shocked her. The girls don't know, but I was testing their true nature. Abigail has always been kind and selfless. Jennifer and Ashley only come around when they want something. The stone I gave Abigail is the key to everything, but it will only work if she finds the other two. One is with Mrs. Wilson, my old teacher. The other is with Mr. Johnson, from the corner store. Abigail remembered Mrs. Wilson, who had taught Elizabeth in her youth, and Mr. Johnson, the owner of a small neighborhood market. Her aunt had always helped financially. The next morning, she first went to Mrs. Wilson's house, an 80-year-old woman who lived in a modest home in Lakeview. "Abigail, dear, look how you've grown," the teacher said warmly. "I was so sorry to hear about Elizabeth. She was a very special student. Mrs. Wilson, did Auntie leave something with you?" The teacher smiled and went to an old cabinet. "She asked me to keep this until you came for it." It was a small box just like the one Abigail had received, containing an identical stone. "Elizabeth said you'd understand its meaning when the time was right," Mrs. Wilson explained. "She always said you were special, different from the other girls in the family." Abigail thanked her, moved, and went to find Mr. Johnson. The corner store was on a busy street in the Holy Family neighborhood. Mr. Johnson was a simple man in his 60s who knew everyone in the area. "Abigail, good girl, your aunt talked about you often," he said, wiping his hands on his apron. "I have something she left for you." He went to the back of the store and returned with another small red box. "Aunt Elizabeth helped me keep this market running when I was going through hard times. She said one day you'd come looking for this and that I should tell you the truth about her." "What truth, Mr. Johnson?" "Your aunt wasn't just a wealthy woman, Abigail. She had a heart of gold. She helped many families in the neighborhood, paid for underprivileged children's education, and gave jobs to those in need, but always in secret. She never wanted anyone to know." Abigail felt her eyes well up. Elizabeth had a side she'd never fully known. Why did she do it in secret? She said she wanted to help genuinely, not to show off or impress anyone. She mentioned her other nieces wouldn't understand that kind of gesture. Abigail returned home with the 3 stones, sensing she was about to uncover something important. In the secret office, she found a powerful magnifying glass and began examining the stones together. When she placed them side by side under a strong light, she noticed markings that complemented each other. They seemed to form some kind of code or map when joined. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Abigail photographed the stones in various positions and took the images to Professor Williams the next day. "Incredible!" the professor exclaimed when he saw the photos. "Elizabeth was right. These markings form very precise geographic coordinates." He grabbed a map of the region and began calculating. "Look here, Abigail. The markings point to a specific area near Golden Hills, close to Denver. It's exactly where your aunt bought those properties. What could be on that land?" "From the research I did with Elizabeth, likely a lithium deposit. It's an increasingly valuable mineral because of electric car batteries and solar energy equipment." Abigail felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. "Does that mean—" "It means your aunt left you something potentially very valuable, but not just financially. Lithium is crucial for a more sustainable future." When Abigail got home that afternoon, she found Jennifer and Ashley waiting for her in the living room. They seemed agitated. "Abigail, we need to talk," Jennifer said, in an unusually serious tone. "What's wrong?" Ashley stepped closer. "We've heard you've been investigating that stone you got. We want our share in whatever you find." Abigail was surprised. "How did you know?" "We have our sources," Jennifer said vaguely. "The point is, we're family. If Auntie hid something valuable, we all have a right to it. You ignored Auntie for years, only showing up when you needed money. Now you want to split an inheritance you're not even sure exists?" Ashley crossed her arms. "Auntie was a bit out of it lately. She probably wasn't thinking straight when she handed out those keepsakes." Abigail felt anger rising inside her. Auntie was sharp until her last day. She knew exactly what she was doing. "Listen here," Jennifer said threateningly. "You can play the saint all you want, but you're not keeping everything for yourself. We'll take legal action if we have to." Abigail went upstairs, disturbed by the conversation. How had they found out about her investigation? Someone was watching her steps. She decided to speed up her research. The next day, she took her car to the properties Elizabeth had bought. It was a beautiful rural area, with hills covered in vegetation and scattered houses. Following the coordinates the stones indicated, she arrived at a fenced-off lot with a sign that read, "Private Property." She used the key she had found among her aunt's papers and entered. The property was larger than she had imagined. There was an old stone structure, half abandoned, and some rusted mining equipment. Abigail explored the building and found a small office with old maps pinned to the wall. One of them clearly showed the location of mineral veins in the area. There was also a folder with documents dating back to the early 20th century. They were mineral exploration reports signed by Joseph Carter, Elizabeth's great-grandfather. According to the documents, he had discovered a rich lithium deposit in the region, but had to halt exploration due to lack of resources and pressure from larger companies trying to take his land. One document caught her attention. The deposit remains intact. "I leave these clues so that a descendant may resume the work when the times are more favorable." Abigail understood everything. Elizabeth had spent years gathering information and buying back the land to continue her great-grandfather's work, and she had chosen her, Abigail, to carry on the project. When she returned home, she found an unfamiliar car in the garage. Mrs. Thompson intercepted her at the entrance with a worried expression. "Dear, your cousins brought some men here. They said they were going to search the house for inheritance documents." Abigail felt her blood boil. She rushed up to the secret office and found Jennifer going through Elizabeth's papers, accompanied by two men in suits. "What are you doing here?" "Exercising our rights as heirs," said Ashley, who was examining the small boxes of stones. "We hired a lawyer to review the entire inheritance." One of the men introduced himself as Dr. Reynolds, a lawyer specializing in family disputes. "Miss Abigail, your cousins claim the division of the inheritance was irregular. We request access to all documents left by the deceased." Abigail noticed they had already taken several folders. "You have no right to search the house without my permission." "Yes, we do," said Jennifer, showing a paper. "We obtained a temporary court order." Abigail read the document. It was a preliminary injunction requesting the preservation of all inheritance assets until a new evaluation was made. "We discovered your aunt had properties and investments that weren't declared in the official inventory," explained Dr. Reynolds. "This completely changes the value of the inheritance." Abigail realized she was in a difficult situation. If her cousins could prove there were undeclared assets, they could force a new division of the entire inheritance. "We also need to examine that stone you received," said the lawyer, holding out his hand. "Why? Everyone already saw it's worthless." Ashley gave a little laugh. "Strange how attached you are to a worthless stone, huh, Abigail?" Reluctantly, Abigail handed over the stone, but kept the other two in her pocket without anyone noticing. Dr. Reynolds examined the stone briefly and returned it. "It really does seem worthless. But we'll have a professional appraisal of all inheritance items." After they left, Abigail grew worried. If they discovered the true value of the properties and deposits, her cousins would demand a share of the profits. But her aunt had been clear. She wanted her to continue her great-grandfather's project. She decided to find a trustworthy lawyer. Mrs. Thompson recommended Dr. Robert Peterson, an elderly lawyer who had worked with Elizabeth on some matters. "Abigail, I met your aunt over 20 years ago. She was a very wise and cautious woman," said Dr. Robert in his downtown Denver office. "Doctor, my cousins are contesting the inheritance. Could they get a share of the properties Aunt Elizabeth left me?" The lawyer smiled. "Your aunt already anticipated this. She came to me a few months before she passed away, and we set up a very specific legal structure to protect her wishes." He opened a folder and showed documents to Abigail. "The rural properties are not part of the regular inheritance. They were transferred to a foundation created specifically for sustainable mining projects. You were named the sole administrator of the foundation." Abigail couldn't believe it. "Does this mean—" It means your cousins have no claim to these lands or anything found on them. Elizabeth was very clear. She wanted you to use the resources for the good of the community, not for personal gain. Abigail felt a mix of relief and responsibility. But doctor, what if we discover a valuable deposit? What should I do? The Foundation's documents are clear. Any profits must be reinvested in social and environmental projects for the region. Your aunt wanted to create jobs and sustainable development, not just accumulate wealth. Abigail left the office with a completely new feeling. Elizabeth hadn't just left her an inheritance, she had entrusted her with a mission. In the following days, Abigail hired a specialized mineral exploration company to conduct a detailed study of the properties. She used her own savings to pay for the service, not wanting her cousins to find out yet. The results came a week later. The geologist in charge of the study, Dr. Michael Collins, called her for an urgent meeting. Abigail, the results are astounding, he said, showing her detailed maps. We've found one of the largest lithium deposits ever identified in Colorado. The estimated value is hundreds of millions of dollars. Abigail felt her legs tremble. Hundreds of millions? And the best part, the deposit is in a geological formation that allows extraction with very low environmental impact. It's perfect for a sustainable mining project. Dr. Collins explained that the lithium extracted from there could supply battery factories for decades, significantly contributing to the country's energy transition. How long would it take to start operations? With the right investments, about 2 years to begin production, but it will require a lot of upfront capital. Abigail thought about the responsibility she had taken on. How would she secure the necessary resources? When she got home, she found Jennifer and Ashley waiting for her again. Abigail, we need to have a serious talk, Jennifer said. We found out you've been hiring companies to survey Aunt Elizabeth's properties, Ashley added. That proves those lands have value. Abigail tried to stay calm. I'm just taking care of the assets Aunt Elizabeth left me. Listen here, Jennifer said, stepping closer. We know you found something valuable. We're not going to be left out. Ashley crossed her arms. We have a proposal for you. A mining company is interested in the properties. They're offering $50 million to buy everything. Abigail was shocked. $50 million? How did they even hear about the properties? Doesn't matter how, Jennifer said. The point is we can split the money 3 ways, $16 million each. And if I refuse? Ashley smirked. Then we'll take legal action, questioning your mental capacity these past few months. We'll prove Aunt Elizabeth was senile and that you influenced her to get the properties. Abigail felt anger but also pity for her cousins. They didn't understand the true purpose of Elizabeth's legacy. You have 3 days to decide, Jennifer said. After that, our lawyer will file a lawsuit. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. After they left, Abigail called Dr. Robert Peterson. Doctor, my cousins are threatening me. A company wants to buy the properties for $50 million. Abigail, $50 million is far too little for what you've discovered, Dr. Peterson replied. That company likely knows the real value of the deposit. But how did they find out? Your cousins must have leaked the information. In the mining world, news travels fast. Dr. Peterson explained that several large companies were competing for lithium deposits in Brazil, and some used questionable methods to secure land. What your aunt really wanted was for you to create a sustainable alternative, a community cooperative that would benefit the entire region. Abigail spent the night thinking it over. By morning, she had made a decision. She called Dr. Michael Collins and arranged a meeting with residents from the area where the properties were located. The following Saturday, about 50 people gathered at the community center in Golden Hills. There were locals, small business owners, farm workers, and their families. Abigail explained the situation. There was a valuable deposit on the land she had inherited, and she wanted to create a cooperative to mine it sustainably, generating jobs and development for the whole community. Our idea is to establish a community mining operation, Dr. Collins explained. Profits would be shared among all members, and a portion would be invested in education, healthcare, and infrastructure for the region. A man in his 50s raised his hand. And how will you get the money to start? A project like this must cost a fortune. Abigail had researched several options. There are development banks that fund sustainable projects. We can also seek partnerships with universities and environmental organizations. An elderly woman spoke up. My family has lived here for generations. We've seen big companies come in, destroy everything, and leave nothing but holes in the ground. How do we know this will be different? Because you'll be the owners of the project, Abigail answered. Every family in the community will have an equal share in the cooperative. Decisions will be made by assembly, not by businessmen who live far from here. The meeting lasted 3 hours. In the end, 45 families agreed to join the cooperative. A provisional committee was formed to start organizing the project. Abigail returned home, moved but aware there was much work ahead. She needed to prepare a business plan for the banks, secure environmental permits, and face her cousin's resistance. On Monday, Jennifer and Ashley showed up with Dr. Reynolds and 2 other men. Abigail, this is Mr. Blackwell, a representative from American Mining Corp., Jennifer said. They've raised their offer to $80 million. Mr. Blackwell was a short man in his 60s with a smile that didn't inspire trust. Miss Abigail, our company has a strategic interest in these properties. We can close the deal today. I'm not interested in selling. But think about it, Ashley insisted. 80 million, nearly 30 million for each of us. Abigail looked firmly at her cousins. The land is not for sale. I'm developing a sustainable community project. Mr. Blackwell laughed dismissively. A community project? Miss, mining is serious business, not some NGO game. You have no idea what you're doing. We do, and we have qualified technical support. Dr. Reynolds spoke up. Abigail, if you don't accept our offer, we'll challenge your ownership of the land in court. We have evidence the transfer was irregular. What evidence? Jennifer smirked. We found people willing to testify that Aunt Elizabeth had mental issues in her final months, that you took advantage of the situation to manipulate her. Abigail felt her blood run cold. She knew this wasn't true, but she also knew a lawsuit could delay her plans for years. You have 1 week to reconsider, said Mr. Blackwell. After that, things might get more complicated. Once they left, Abigail frantically called Dr. Robert Peterson. Doctor, they're threatening to file a lawsuit questioning Aunt Elizabeth's mental state. Abigail, this is an intimidation tactic. Elizabeth had medical tests done shortly before she passed that prove she was of sound mind, but a lawsuit could really slow everything down. What can I do? Speed up your project. The more concrete and official it is, the harder it will be to challenge. Abigail decided to dedicate herself entirely to the cooperative's project. She spent the next few days chasing documents, feasibility studies, and meetings with investors. The development bank she'd contacted showed real interest in the project. Dr. Stephen Roberts, the Sustainable Projects Manager, explained that initiatives like theirs were a priority for the institution. Abigail, your project fits perfectly with our guidelines. We can fund up to 80% of the initial investment. What would the total investment be? According to the studies you presented, around $50 million to start operations. Abigail was stunned. It was nearly the same amount the company had offered to buy the land. And the interest rates? For sustainable community projects, we work with subsidized rates. Payments would be made as the cooperative generates revenue. It sounded too good to be true. Abigail asked for time to review the proposal with the community. Meanwhile, the pressure from her cousins grew. They had spread rumors through the family that Abigail was being irresponsible and selfish. During lunch at an older aunt's house, Abigail was confronted by several relatives. Abigail, you're being very stubborn, said Aunt Margaret, Elizabeth's sister. 80 million is a lot of money. Think of the good you could do for the whole family. She's right, Abigail, agreed another cousin. Elizabeth wouldn't want you to be selfish with the inheritance. Abigail tried to explain the cooperative project, but realized no one wanted to listen. These community projects never work, said Uncle George. It's throwing money away. Better to sell now and invest in something safe, added Cousin Rachel. Abigail left the lunch feeling more alone than ever. It seemed the whole family was against her. On her way home, she stopped at the cemetery where Elizabeth was buried. She sat by the grave and talked to her aunt as if she could hear. "Auntie, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Everyone says I'm stubborn and irresponsible. Maybe I should just sell the land and split the money." The wind rustled the flowers Abigail had brought, and she remembered the words she'd found in her aunt's notebook. "Abigail will understand the true meaning of the inheritance when the time is right." Elizabeth didn't want her to get rich. She wanted her to make a difference in other people's lives. Abigail stood up, determined. She wouldn't disappoint her aunt. The following week, she presented the full project to the cooperative's assembly. The plan included creating 200 direct jobs, investing in local schools and health clinics, and preserving 70% of the area as an environmental reserve. "Everyone, this project could transform our region," Abigail told the gathered members. "But I need you to be sure you want to move forward. There'll be a lot of pressure against us." Mr. Johnson, the owner of the corner store, stood up. "Abigail, my family has worked this land for 3 generations. We've always been exploited by big companies that come here just to take our wealth away. For the first time, we have the chance to be masters of our own destiny." Mrs. Wilson, the retired teacher, also said, "Dear, Elizabeth was my brightest student. If she chose you to lead this project, it's because she knew you'd do the right thing." The assembly approved the project unanimously. The Golden Hills Sustainable Mining Cooperative was officially established, with Abigail as president. In the following days, she filed all the necessary documents to start the project: environmental permits, cooperative registration, funding applications, and hiring the technical team. Jennifer and Ashley were furious when they found out. "Abigail, you're playing with fire," Jennifer threatened over the phone. "American Mining Corp is a powerful company. They won't accept being double-crossed." "I'm not double-crossing anyone. I'm exercising my rights over the properties I inherited." "Your rights?" Ashley laughed. "Let's see how long you keep those rights." The next day, Abigail received a court summons. Her cousins had filed a lawsuit questioning her mental capacity, claiming she had manipulated Elizabeth to obtain the properties. Dr. Peterson reassured her. "Abigail, this is just an intimidation tactic. We have all the proof that Elizabeth was of sound mind and that the property transfer was legal." "But won't it delay the project?" "It might slow things down a bit, but it won't stop us. Keep running the cooperative as usual." Abigail followed his advice, but the pressure was intense. Besides the lawsuit, she started receiving threatening calls, and strange cars were seen watching her house. One evening, Mrs. Thompson came to her worried. "Dear, some men showed up asking about you. They claimed to be journalists, but they didn't seem like it." Abigail decided to be more cautious. She installed security cameras at home and began varying her routes around town. Despite the pressure, the cooperative's project moved forward. The bank approved the funding, environmental permits were granted, and the technical team began preparatory work. Dr. Collins was optimistic about the first test results. "Abigail, the lithium quality here is exceptional. We can start extraction within 6 months." "What about the environmental impact?" "Everything meets the strictest standards. The deposit allows for minimal impact extraction. We'll set an example for the industry." Meanwhile, the lawsuit filed by her cousins wasn't progressing as they'd hoped. Elizabeth's medical records proved her lucidity, and multiple witnesses confirmed she was fully aware of her decisions. Dr. Reynolds had to admit in court that there was no concrete evidence of manipulation. "Your Honor, our objection is based on the unequal distribution of the inheritance," he argued. But the judge wasn't convinced. "Counselor, there's no law requiring equal division among heirs. The deceased had the right to distribute her assets as she wished." Jennifer and Ashley left the courtroom visibly upset. "This isn't over," Jennifer muttered to Abigail. "You'll regret this." Abigail tried not to let the threats shake her. The cooperative's project was already showing positive results. Families in the area were excited about the job prospects and development. A few weeks later, she got an unexpected call. It was an investigative journalist from a major Denver newspaper. "Abigail, this is Sarah Johnson from the Rocky Mountain Post. I'm looking into irregularities at American Mining Corp. Your name came up in our research." "How so?" "They tried bribing public officials to fast-track a project in your area. We've also uncovered illegal methods they use to pressure small landowners into selling their properties." Abigail was shocked but not surprised. What can I do to help? I need you to tell me everything that happened. Your cousins and this company might be involved in something bigger. Abigail recounted the whole story to the journalist. The pressures, the threats, the attempt to buy the land for less than it's worth. Abigail, you could be in danger. This company has a history of using violent methods against anyone who gets in their way. The article was published a week later, causing a major stir. American Mining Corp was accused of corruption and intimidation, and several of its executives were investigated. Mr. Blackwell was caught red-handed, trying to bribe an environmental inspector. Jennifer and Ashley were called to testify as witnesses since they had mediated the negotiations. Abigail felt relieved, but also worried about her cousins. Despite everything that had happened, they were still family. She went to Dr. Robert Peterson to find out if they faced any legal risks. Abigail, your cousins probably didn't know they were dealing with a criminal enterprise, but they'll have to answer for some irregularities in the case against you. A few days later, Jennifer called Abigail in tears. Abigail, I'm so sorry for everything we did. We had no idea that company was corrupt. Jennifer, why did you do it? Aunt Elizabeth always treated you well. Because we were jealous of you, Jennifer admitted between sobs. She always treated you like a daughter, while we were just distant nieces. When we found out she left you something special, we got angry. Abigail pitied her cousin. What now? What are you going to do? We don't know. We're under investigation. Our reputation is ruined, and we've spent all our savings on lawyers. Abigail thought of Aunt Elizabeth's words about forgiveness and second chances. Jennifer, the cooperative will need people for administrative work. If you want to start over, you can apply for a position. Jennifer couldn't believe it. You'd do that for us, after everything. Aunt Elizabeth always said family is family, no matter the mistakes we make. Ashley also called the next day, apologizing and thanking her for the job offer. Abigail, you're a far better person than we deserve, she said, her voice trembling. 3 months later, the Golden Hills Sustainable Mining Cooperative officially launched. The opening ceremony brought together hundreds of locals, officials, and environmental organization representatives. Abigail gave an emotional speech honoring Aunt Elizabeth. My aunt always believed the true value of things isn't in their price, but in the good they can do for others. This project fulfills her dream of seeing our region thrive sustainably. Dr. Michael Collins presented the first production figures. The quality of the extracted lithium exceeded all expectations, and contracts had already been signed with domestic and international battery manufacturers. In 5 years, this cooperative will account for 10% of the country's lithium production, he announced, and all with zero negative environmental impact. Mr. Johnson was elected vice president of the cooperative and insisted on speaking at the ceremony. Mrs. Carter planted a seed that Abigail nurtured. Today we reap the first fruits, but I know there's much more to come. The cooperative employed 200 local families. Wages were above the regional average, and all members shared in the profits. With the revenue generated, 2 schools, a health clinic, and a vocational training center were built. What was once a subsistence farming region became a model of sustainable development. Jennifer and Ashley secured jobs in the cooperative's administration. They started as assistants, but they worked so hard that within a few months, they were promoted to department coordinators. Abigail, thank you for giving us this second chance, Jennifer said during a monthly meeting of the cooperative. I've learned that easy money doesn't bring happiness. Working for something that benefits others is far more rewarding. Ashley nodded in agreement. I never imagined I'd feel so fulfilled working at a cooperative. It's completely different from just thinking about making money. Abigail smiled, remembering Elizabeth's words about the transformative power of teamwork. A year after its inauguration, the cooperative received a National Sustainability Award. Abigail was invited to present the project at an international conference on responsible mining. During her presentation, she showed the 3 stones that had started the entire journey. These stones seemed worthless to those who only glanced at them. But my aunt knew the real treasure lay in what we could build together from them. The project became a case study in universities and inspired the creation of other mining cooperatives across the country. Abigail received offers to open consulting firms and write books about the model they had developed. but she chose to stay focused on the cooperative and the region that had become her true home. "What matters isn't fame or wealth," she said in an interview with journalist Sarah Johnson. "What matters is knowing we're making a difference in the right people's lives." 5 years after receiving Elizabeth's inheritance, Abigail was at a cooperative meeting when Mrs. Thompson appeared with an old box. "Dear, I found this in your aunt's attic. I think you should see it." Inside the box were letters Elizabeth had written but never sent. One of them was addressed to Abigail. "My dearest Abigail, if you're reading this letter, it means you've solved the riddle of the stones and my plan has succeeded. I always knew you were different from your cousins. Where they saw only self-interest, you saw opportunities to help others. The stones I left you weren't just clues to finding the deposit. They were a test to see if you'd use wealth for the common good or for personal gain. You passed with flying colors. The true treasure of our family was never the jewels or the money. It was always the ability to turn opportunities into hope for others. Your great-grandfather Joseph had that vision. I tried to carry it on, and now you're fulfilling all our dreams. Always stay the generous, determined person you are. The world needs more people like you. With all my love and pride, your Aunt Elizabeth." Abigail finished reading the letter with tears in her eyes. She looked out the window and saw the local children playing in the park the cooperative had built. The young people heading to the new technical school, the adults returning from work with satisfied expressions. Elizabeth had left far more than a material inheritance. She had left a legacy of social change that would continue to impact future generations. Abigail placed the letter in the safe alongside the 3 stones, now displayed in a case at the community center as a symbol of the cooperative. That evening, she visited Elizabeth's grave, as she did every month. "Auntie, we did it. The cooperative is strong. The region is thriving, and even my cousins have found their way. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." A gentle breeze swayed the fresh flowers Abigail had brought, and she felt as though Elizabeth was smiling, pleased to see her plan had worked. The dull grey stone that had once been met with such disdain had become the foundation of a project that changed hundreds of lives. It was proof that the true value of things isn't always in their appearance, but in what we're able to build with them. Abigail returned home, knowing she had honored not only the memory of her auntie, but also the trust of an entire community that had believed in her dream. The cooperative kept growing and became a global reference in sustainable mining. Jennifer and Ashley became strong advocates for the cooperative model and helped implement similar projects in other regions. And the 3 stones remained on display in the community center's showcase, reminding everyone that life's greatest treasures aren't the ones that shine in the eyes, but the ones that light up the heart and transform realities. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of perseverance and forgiveness. Do you believe Abigail made the right choice by creating the cooperative instead of selling the land? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.